Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Unfucking Your CX. Everyone knows me, your host, but you're in for a real treat today. I have the amazing Vicki Brackett in the hot seat. Vicki, welcome to the
You.
podcast. Now, you guys may or may not be able to see it, but Vicki is living it up. I mean, living it up. You could maybe or maybe not hear the waterfall in the back. So, Vicky, where are we having this conversation today?
I am outside Phoenix in Apache Junction at my brother's home, which is like a five-star resort. And I'm outside in the part of his backyard.
That's amazing. I'm curious because I can see the bar in the background. If we weren't working and we were just having this conversation, are we doing it over a water, a beer, a wine, a champagne?
I'm not very exciting this morning. A cup of tea,
Ooh, what's your favorite tea?
a good earth. I love spiced tea.
Oh yeah, I'm a big green tea fan myself. So I'm always down for a good cup of tea. So Vicky, the purpose is there's always the topic of customer experience or customer support that when we hear it or when we see it in action, or maybe we don't see it in action, it makes us cringe. And you're here to uncringe it or unfuck it today. So, what is that one topic?
Well, I guess I would say that executives teams see customer service as a cost center, not a profit center. I think one of the challenges is because customer service leaders do not have a true seat at the table. That's sort of a blanket statement, but I'm saying over the course of it, I just don't think a true seat at the table to drive their initiatives, and they're struggling with getting some of their new initiatives driven.
Yeah, look, I'm right there with you. I think we continuously see, Vicky, though, like the rise of the contact center, right? We see it all over LinkedIn. We see it on white papers. We see it from SaaS companies. And look, when I was running a customer service department at Aaron's, it was kind of the same thing, right? It was always about what's the cost to serve the customer. And ultimately, what I had to learn to do was say, hey, look, customer service center is actually the last line of defense essentially to retain our customers. So I know you do that and you do it exceptionally well. If you think about the contact center leader though today, I'm curious, in order to earn a seat at the table, they've got to be able to connect the dots. So why are service leaders failing to connect?
I think because a lot of them believe that if you build it, they will come, sort of. In other words, hey, we're having trouble with this. We can cut down money using AI, auto QA, knowledge management, agent assist, whatever it happens to be. And it seems very logical. They can prove the ROI on paper, right? So they can see the numbers. But I think it's the story that we're telling them, and people don't see how customer service is really infused in the total brand and the whole experience that a customer has, whether you're talking to a neighbor, you're thinking about it at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I think we have to be telling a different story to different people and be more holistic.
Ooh, I love that. What's the story that we're telling? And I love how you're tying it to the brand because ultimately, I think about that frontline agent. That is that last kind of brand experience they could be having. And I know you know this. Agents are frustrated because their hands are tied. And so ultimately, if they're really frustrated, that's going to show up in the way that they handle a call. And it's not the fault of their own, but it's because what they're essentially dealt with, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it's full cycle because that frustration that an agent feels that the customer is going to feel impacts the bottom line, impacts top line revenue, impacts attrition, impacts absenteeism, average handle time. It literally spirals and touches everything. So it
Yeah,
really is an important piece.
it is. It so is. I'd love just before we get into player tips, I'd love, one of the things that I continuously hear is around, and I think you hit on it really quickly is how do we leverage AI or agents to help us close those tickets faster to where we can maybe cut cost out of the customer service center by eliminating some of the headcount? I'm curious your take on that. I wrote on it this morning about just because you close tickets faster doesn't mean you actually get to the root problem of what's
Mhm.
happening upstream in that customer journey. But I'm curious kind of your take on all this new technology and has it really made our customer service departments better when you think about recovering the customer relationship, not closing out a ticket, but absolutely covering that customer relationship.
Yeah, I think that what we have to do is really understand that there's so much hype around AI that it goes back to something that's very basic, very, very primal, and that's discussions, communication. And I think the more we talk about this, then I think that people are going to get a realistic view of what AI can absolutely do to help. People are afraid of it. People don't know what to do with it. So it's all about having those conversations, just like a relationship, right? You just have to keep talking.
Yeah. And if we think about tying this back to earning a seat at the table and contact center just being looked as a cost center, essentially, what I am curious about is, do you think it's the ROI that is inhibiting them to earn a seat at the table? Or is it the way that they're telling the story that maybe it's not effective enough for the executive team to say, wow, Zach, we need you to be a more active participant in representing the customer service center?
So I'm going to go back one step further and go what I believe is the root cause, and it goes back to relationships.
Mm.
So it's our relationship with logistics, the warehouse, IT, marketing, procurement, finance, HR, right? All of those relationships are important, and we have to tell our story to them in a way that they understand it. So now we have a holistic team of people so that they're talking about customer service when we're not even in the room, saying, yeah, that just makes sense. Because when you really think about it, Zach, the ROI, everyone can connect the dots, right? This isn't rocket science. When we don't have the right information, or we're not serving the customer, and how it all trickles down, and handle its revenue and profitability and KPIs. Oh, everybody gets that. But it's the relationships, it's the story, it's getting people on our side, it's being out on the golf course. I don't play golf, but I've driven that doggone cart a few times, right? I mean, that's not going to keep me away. So it is about having those relationships. And I don't think people are taught to do that.
You're so spot on there, and I'd be with you driving the golf cart because I don't play golf either. Um, I I'm so totally with you. If I think about my time when I was, at Aaron's, there were so many meetings that I wasn't a part of when I had customer experience in contact center. And if I'm the only one who's advocating for the customer and asking those questions and telling that specific story, and I'm not in those meetings, then who's going to do it? And so ultimately, to your point, I had to learn how to build a personal relationship with my cross-functional partners, because what I also realized was, even if I quote unquote democratize, which I hate that word, but if I democratize the insights, one, that doesn't mean they're going to be logging in the dashboard and looking at it. And two, they may not know what to do with that information. So that's where, to your point, my personal relationships that I had to build and say, hey, look, I'm going to actually help you become your business partner. So if you think about earning that seat at the table, and it comes down to relationships, and I'm with you, the customer service center needs to have that seat at the table, because a lot of times they're your last brand experience that a customer is going to have. What's the first player tip? Because so many customer service leaders struggle with this and they burn out, right? Because they feel like they're not doing meaningful work. So what's that first player tip? How are you helping hundreds of customer service leaders do exactly this?
Great question. And I'm so glad that you asked. I think we spend, as customer service leaders, we spend most of the day with the fire extinguishers on our back, just trying to juggle all the pieces that make a contact center run, right? And I really think it goes back to building those relationships in a way. Let me give you a couple examples. So in one organization I ran, I knew I was going to need FTE. I knew I was going to need more technology. I was doing a turnaround. So when it came to budget time, I went into the controller's office and said, could you sort of help explain this to me? I need some help. I'm not sure what line item to put this on. And basically, I'm weaving in my story. And she's like, oh, this will get pushed through if you put it on this line. And this will do good if you put on this guy. And I'm like, well, I've got this challenge with X, and I'm not sure. Can you help me? What's the best way to present that when I'm presenting the budget to the CEO and the board? And the controller would say, well, I would hit these 3 points. And I'm madly, writing this down. And those are the 3 points that I would hit. You do the same thing with marketing. Yeah, I've got a problem with people keep calling the contact center about this issue with returns. I'm not sure the best way to deflect the calls. What do you think, Mr. or Mrs. Marketing person? Let them come up with the ideas. Go to them for help. And now your challenge is are now their challenges and they're dying to help you. I've never had anyone turn me down when I said, gee, can you help me out? I'm not sure what to do. Like, that's how you build the relationships. I used to, when I was younger, just go in and tell them what I wanted, and I got met with the proverbial brick wall, right? Because I'm high energy and I'm intense and I'm moving fast, right? And I'm making things happen. But that's not what they wanted. They wanted to be part of the solution. So I would just go in and say, here's my problem. I don't know what to do. And I learned that over time, being knocked down a few times, right? And I actually had an IT person help me with that.
I'm laughing at you, Vicki. I'm laughing with you because I've been there and I've been knocked down right with you. I think what you just said, though, is so powerful. Ultimately, you're co-creating solutions to the specific customer problems, and they are taking those problems on as their own because they realize the friction is happening earlier in the customer journey and their team owns causing that friction. That's such an incredible player tip. What's player tip number 2?
Number 2 is what I would call an executive summary above the fold on an email. And it's just very, very high level. So quick story on this. I ran a global organization, and it was part of a $6 billion company. And I knew it was a turnaround with a very large client. This is when I ran a BPO. And I basically started sending my executive summaries around the world to all the company country managers. Now, they didn't know who I was. They knew my client, obviously, because it's a big name, right? But they didn't know who I was. But I, above the fold, gave them the highlights. So then it was like people from all over the world would say, hey, do you need any help? And I mean, I didn't know who these people were. But the CEO, they started talking about my program to the COO, and boy, he knew exactly who I was. And so I really got things moved quickly.
Well, but I think that the lesson here is, I think too often we underestimate how quickly an email can travel internally within an organization through writing effectiveness. And you just demonstrated you leveraged writing effectiveness to make that email travel within milliseconds around the globe. And I think that's so important, especially now that we're in the attention economy. And we have this sad, but our attention span is less than 7 seconds. So to your point, in that summary, what's the one hook that you're going to write to where that executive says, I need to read on?
And it's also the consistency, Zach. A flash in the pan is one thing, but when they get them every week or every other week or something, now it sort of piques their interest and something might be happening in their organization or their department. And I send them, internally as well to all of the departments that touch the contact center, which is pretty much most organizations, right? And I would say I would say, without even you asking, the third tip really is, and this is the one that's the hardest for people because they don't want to do it. And I will be honest, I don't like doing this either, but I force myself to do it. And that's do videos. So it's sort of your executive summary, and it could be different things. It could be, hey, these are the good news that happened, and that's it. And you do it in less than a minute to a minute and a half. It'll be, hey, this is the struggle I'm having. Anybody have any ideas out there? And I used to do a different one for the country managers and the executive team than I would with for supporting. And my team would say, one day someone said, what do you do all day, Vicki? And I said, something, it's not putting out fires. You guys are doing that. I'm out there spreading our story so that doors will open when we need help. They are killing themselves to help us. And that's the only way I've been able to turn around over 100 different business units in my career, is because I've built those relationships. And that is a critical piece of an executive's job in customer care.
Well, absolutely. And I think the lesson learned here for me on this one is you're not spending your entire week building insight reports that are going nowhere. You're spending your entire time influencing, dare I say, selling your cross-functional team on why this is so important. You're advocating for the customer through influencing your cross-functional colleagues, because it's really their problems to own, right? You just said, I'm not the one firefighting, you are, because you got to take care of it. I'm the one that's telling the story. And I think that one is so powerful. When you were talking about creating a video, I was just thinking to myself, YouTube shorts, less than 90 seconds, are so powerful. How many of us get sucked into a YouTube short versus reading an email? That's an awesome player tip. I haven't even thought about that one. I've only been thinking about crafting an email that travels, but I love this player tip on a video.
Well, you can also use the videos for praise. So if Bob over in logistics helped you, or the controller helps you, you do a thank you video, or you mention at the end of your executive summary in video or in Word that basically says, oh, and thanks to Susie Q over in the finance department for helping me. I mean, you give them the praise because we don't praise people.
That's actually player tip number 4, is that the power of positive praise. And then they're more emotionally bought into you, and now they want to help you because you've just made them look amazing in front of not only their peers and their boss, but from a global organization like that.
Yeah, and what happens is they start asking you for help. And that's when you know you're getting traction, right? There's no report that comes out and says, "Oh, here's your influence meter," right? It's basically they're saying, "Hey, what do you think about this, Vicki?" Or "I'm trying to get this, Bob over in marketing, will you come with me?" Or "What do you think about this?" Or "How should I present?" That's when you start getting buy-in. Water
Yeah.
against the rock, just keep it going.
It's the pull versus the push, right? And you definitely have just thank you for coming to the hot seat, because those 4 player tips, if our listeners just execute those, they're going to be able to gravitate the pull like you have and turned around so many different customer service centers. Vicki, it's been amazing. Anyone who's listening, if they want to get in touch with you to continue the conversation or maybe even get help, how do they do that? What's the best place for them to get in touch with you?
Obviously on our website at knowledgely.co, and of course on LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn, and I do a lot of speaking at events around the country. So yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's where you and I connected.
That's right.
Was via LinkedIn, and that's how our conversation has started. Vicki, again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you,
Incredible
Zach.
player tips. Please do not be a stranger to the hot seat.
Oh, I won't. I love your podcast. I like the short little snippets. It's fun. Just fun.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.